My first personal experience with mind, body, and immunity, which has come to be known as psychoneuroimmunology, I think occurred when I was 11 years old. My parents decided that it was time for me to go away to summer camp. And although it wasn't really my first choice, I agreed to do this. And I went up to this YMCA facility in Wisconsin. And within about probably 12 hours, I decided that this was not the place for me. I really didn't particularly like the idea that someone was bugling me awake at 6 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't terribly fond of running about 3 miles and then jumping into this freezing cold Lake Chippewa. This young chap who was in the bunk on top of my bed had this funny propensity to have to go to the bathroom about 20 times during the night, always managing to step on my hand or my head as he was climbing off of his top bunk. So by the third night, I had made this decision in my mind that I was going to fake the worst cold and sore throat of my life and force my parents to come up from Chicago and take me home. I plotted this whole strategy and fell asleep, convinced that I'd be home by the next day. And to my total astonishment, when I woke up the next morning, I had this rip-roaring sore throat. My tonsils were swollen. I had about 103 temperature. And when I dragged myself to the infirmary, the nurse took one look at me, called my parents, and a few hours later I was driving home in my dad's Chevy. And although I was totally miserable, I had this really clear idea in my mind thinking, boy, this stuff really works. About 15 years ago, there was an article in the Bible of Western Medicine, which is the New England Journal of Medicine, which looked at the role of stress in people facing cancer. And although this study was very poorly designed, the author of this report came to the conclusion that stress had no role in the outcome of people with cancer. And therefore, they had put to rest once and for all the idea that the mind has any influence on our health. In fact, they called it folklore. The good news about that article is it really provoked a lot of backlash, and that scientists who really intuitively believed that there was some relationship between the mind and the body got excited to see what could be proven. And this has led over the past 20 years, but certainly most explosively over the past 10 years, to this burgeoning field of how the mind affects our physiology. And it's perhaps most clear in this whole realm of psychoneuroimmunology. Psyche is the Latin word for soul or mind. Neuro is the nervous system. Immunology is the understanding of how we defend ourselves from internal or external threats or challenges. And what we've really learned over the past 10 to 20 years is that there's this intimate relationship between the intelligence in our mind and the intelligence in our body. There's been an expansion of our understanding that every time we have an experience in the mind, it translates into some type of chemical or physiological change in the nervous system. So if I'm falling in love or falling out of love or watching a sunrise or listening to a Bach symphony or seeing my son come home with his report card grades, whatever the experience is, that is interpreted in my mind and then instantly transforms the chemistry of our brain. We first started defining these chemicals as neuropeptides or neuromessengers because we thought that they were primarily localized to the nervous system. But subsequently we've learned that these same chemical messengers really are permeating our physiology and influencing every system in our body. So that same chemical that we create when we're feeling ecstatic about a job promotion, that chemical filters into our bloodstream, communicates that information to our heart, to our gut, to our immune system. Similarly, the immune system is continuously monitoring the internal and external environment and sending back messages to our brain. There's this constant dialogue, communication network between our minds, our brains, our endocrine system, which is the system that creates our hormones, and our immunological system. In fact, the expression that we like to use is that our immune cells are constantly eavesdropping on our internal dialogue. If you just close your eyes for a minute and listen, you'll immediately become aware that there's a voice that is carrying on a conversation with itself. I'm getting pretty hungry right now. Wonder how much longer he's going to talk. I should have gone to the bathroom at the break. I wonder how my kids are doing. I hope my husband remembered to take the chicken out of the freezer. Oh, I better pay attention right now. I'm paying good money for this. I wonder what they're doing with all that money. Conversation, constant conversation. And in addition, there's a tone to it. There's a feeling to it. It's really more that feeling to it that's being communicated to every cell in the body. Now, when I first began to explore this and talk about this, particularly to medical audiences, I was a little bit shy about anthropomorphizing, making human these little conversations that take place. But then I read recently a beautiful book by Dr. Jonas Salk called Anatomy of Reality. Those of you, I'm sure, remember that Jonas was the creator of the Salk polio vaccine, which really saved millions of lives worldwide. And he was an amazing philosopher who lived here in La Jolla and died a few years ago. And he describes in this book how he would continuously assign personalities to the various systems that he was studying. So he would assign a personality to an immune cell, to a virus, to a cancer cell, and he would carry on these conversations, and those conversations would give him insights into experiments that he could then perform to understand the process in a deeper level. And so we can imagine the conversations that are going on between our minds and our immune cells. One conversation might be, I am so tired of this job. I am sick of my boss. He's a jerk. I can't wait to get out of here. My relationships are a total mess. I'm just not happy in my life. We send those signals to our immune cells. Our immune cells circulating around are saying, God, I'm really not liking my job very much either these days. I have been feeling kind of depressed about my work. There's a funny looking virus. I'll let somebody else take care of it. I'm not getting paid enough for this anyways. On the other hand, we could imagine this other conversation. Boy, I have a great life right now. I have a wonderful person in my life who fulfills my needs. My kids are doing great. I'm really happy in my job. I'm enthusiastic about what I'm involved in. I even have a vacation to look forward to in 2 weeks. I'm doing great. Our immune cells are having the same conversation. I'm really in a great mood today. Look at that funny little cell. It looks like it's slightly transforming its genetic code. Uh-oh, we don't want any cancer here. I'll comfortably remind this chap that there's no room for him in this organization. So there's this continuous dialogue, and by making choices that improve the quality of this dialogue, we can improve the quality of our immunological functioning. It's a network, a two-way highway. When we recognize something in the environment as being potentially threatening, our immune cells immediately assess the situation, send back information to the nervous system. There's a continuous dialogue taking place through the process of these neuropeptides, these little chemical messengers which are carrying tremendous amounts of information on the quality and quantity of our environment, both internally and externally. There are many close similarities between our brain, our nervous system, and our immune cells. The one thing that really characterizes the nervous system is the diversity of cells. There's a whole vast range of different cells. The immune system similarly has a vast array of diverse different cells which are continuously interacting with each other but have very specific assigned roles. Memory is an important characteristic of both our immune cells and of our nerve cells. We certainly understand that when we have an experience as a child, we remember that has a formative impact upon our lives later on. Similarly, our immune cells have memory. How they experienced viruses, bacteria, stress hormones early on is carried with them so that later on in life they can respond, hopefully, in an appropriate way. As Deepak mentioned, we carry the memory not only of our individual life, but of our entire evolution. So that if my immune cell never saw a tuberculosis